Hello, whistlers everywhere. So today I thought I'd finish off the final part of the Learning to Read Music series, which I've been working through. So we started off firstly with learning the notes on the stave and how they're related to the notes on the whistle. And we talked about that briefly. Then we had a look at rhythm, at counting rhythm, explaining what time signatures are and also about note values, and then we sort of put them together in a little exercise of counting rhythm. So this final part of the basics of reading music, we're going to talk about rests and rest values. So straight off the bat, if we talk about rests, what the best way I've found to describe what a rest is, it's a silent beat or a silent note. So you have to count the exact same value as if you were playing a note, except you're counting a note of silence or a beat of silence. So if we have a look starting at the longest rest which we will encounter, which is basically in a bar of 4/4, or 4 crotchet beats, 4 quarter notes in a bar. We're talking about the Semibreve Rest, and the Semibreve Rest looks like this. So the Semibreve Rest lasts for a full bar. So if I've got a metronome on 4, now I've set my metronome to 60, 2, 3, 4. So the rest will last for the full beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'll be a full bar of silence if we're in 4/4 time. So the next, we'll get onto dotted rests in a bit, but let's look at the next, which is the minim rest, which is very similar to the semibreve rest or the whole note rest. Now the half note or minim rest is just basically on the other side of the line on the stave. So it looks very similar and it looks like this. And this lasts for 2 beats. So if I set my click to 4/4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'll play a G on my whistle, and so we're counting 2 beats on the whistle and then 2 beats rest. So that's a minim rest. Okay, we'll move on to the crotchet rest or the quarter note rest. And that's the funny little squiggly sign which you see. And it looks, you will have seen this one before, I'm sure. It looks just like this. And that's your quarter note rest or crotchet rest. So if I set my metronome again, what I'll do is I'll play the first note, the second note and the third note, and I'll rest on the last beat. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4. First, second, third, rest. First, second, third, rest. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. So that rest at the end, we still have to count it because it adds up to part of the bar, and if we don't count it, we will have an uneven bar and it will sound out of time. So rests, again, as I said before, treat them exactly the same as notes or beats, except the notes and beats of silence rather than being filled with a note. Okay, so if we're still doing the crotchet rest, I'm going to rest on the second beat and rest on the fourth beat. So I'm going to play it on the first and the third beat. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's our crotchet beat rest. So the next one is the quaver beat, which looks like this. And the quaver beat is half a beat. So if I now set my metronome to count in eighth notes, so we count it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you'll hear 2 clicks per beat, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's how we count the eighth notes or the quavers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the first, the third, the fifth and the seventh. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to rest on the beats in between. So here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now, if I wanted to, I could do that back to front. So I could go rest on the first, play the second, rest on the third, play the fourth, rest on the fifth, play the sixth, rest on the seventh, and play the eighth. So it'd go like this. 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's what we would call playing on the off beat rather than playing on the on beat. So we do have 16th note rests, but I don't want to go too deeply into that. They do exist, and of course they'll be worth a 16th note or a semi-quaver. But let's stop at quavers for now because we don't really see much in the way of 16th note rests. And if anybody really wants to know about 16th note rests, just send me an email or ask me in the comments and I'll explain them to you further. But just know that they exist for now. The chances are that if you're playing a lot of traditional music, you won't really see many 16th note rests. So we'll just stop at 8th note rests for now. So the dot after a note, if you remember the rule, the dot after a note, not above it, below it, has to be on the right hand side of the note. The rule is that you add half of the note's original value. So if we have a dotted whole note or a dotted semibreve, that's worth 4 beats, and half of 4 is 2. So you then have a dotted semibreve of 6 beats. Same with the rest. If you have a semibreve rest and you put a dot after it, it goes from 4, add half of 4, which is 2, which becomes 6. So now you have a semibreve or a dotted semibreve dotted whole note rest. So you rest for 6 beats, but you must count those beats. Really important when you're resting is to count the rests. They are just as important as the notes and the beats. So counting rests is vital. Otherwise, your music will never sound rhythmic or never sound like it's supposed to do. So if we talk about the minim rest, which is worth 2, half note rest, we put a dot on it, then it becomes 3. So we have a dotted minim or dotted half note rest, which is worth 3 beats. And then if we have a dotted quarter note or dotted crotchet, that'll be worth 1.5 beats or 3 eighth note or 3 quaver note beats. So just remember that the same rule applies to rests when you add the dot onto the right hand side. So dotted semibreves, dotted minims, dotted crotchets and dotted quavers. Same rule applies. So the important thing is, when you are counting rests, is not to anticipate the length of time. Don't just use guesswork, count them. They're just as important as I mentioned before. So with rests, they do occur, sometimes they occur in the middle of a piece, sometimes they'll occur at the beginning of a piece, and sometimes they'll occur at an end of a piece. And so if you treat them exactly the same way as you treat notes and beats, count them for the correct duration, and you won't go far wrong. So that was just to basically tie up this series of videos which I'm doing about learning to read music for whistle. So just to mention a few things that I haven't mentioned previously regarding whistle playing and reading of music. It's a good skill to have, but it's not an essential skill to have. If you can pick things up using your ear, then that's great. And I recommend everybody does that. Reading music is great because it helps you maybe learn a tune, or it helps to jog the memory of a tune, which is what I use it for. But what you don't want to do is become reliant on reading music. If it helps you to learn a tune, then that's great. But it doesn't help you to memorize a tune, and it doesn't help you to play a tune in whatever style you choose to. It doesn't give you any ornamentation. It doesn't give you any sort of style or different ways which you can improvise or make melodic changes, slight changes to the tune. So yeah, word of warning, don't become a reader of music rather than a player of music, because very different from the classical world where reading is exactly the same and you'll play a piece exactly as written. There, it's an essential skill to have, and it's not something really which people can do without, especially if you're playing in an orchestra where you've got to learn a whole concerto or a whole sonata or whatever. Yeah, so it saves having to sort of commit those to memory. However, you'll find a lot of soloists will have committed their piano concerto or piano sonata to, or whatever they're playing to memory. So yeah, don't let the music be on the page or on the written note or on tab if you're using tab. Let the music be inside here and inside your fingers, so that whenever you play a tune, you can play it the way you feel at that time. There's an element of improvisation. There's an element of moving beyond what you're comfortable with and always adding things to your playing, adding new techniques, adding different ornamentation. And that's what traditional music should be about. It's not about playing things on rote or having a version of a tune and playing it exactly the same way. And all the great players, they never play a tune the same way twice. They change it up, they put things in as they feel. And that's what traditional music's about. It's about pushing your own personal boundaries and learning new things. And I've been playing whistle and uilleann pipes and flute and traditional music probably for about 30 years now. And I never ever have stopped learning new things or listening to a piece which someone else has played and going, oh, I really like that. I'm going to assimilate that technique into my playing, or I'm going to use a certain ornament which I've not used before, or even make a slight melodic change to something which I hadn't thought about. So yeah, please do remember that the music is a guide and can only ever be a guide, but it's a very useful tool like anything else, it's a very useful tool, and use it and use it well. Use it to help you to remember tunes or even to learn new tunes, but don't use it in place of learning a tune or listening to the way other players play a tune. And don't think that the way it's written in the music is the one definitive way of playing it. It's only ever a guide, and with traditional music it can only ever be a guide, and it has its limitations. So bearing that in mind, if you want to have a go at putting all the things we've put together in the last 3 or 4 videos together, and do practice looking at the notes, learning where they are and counting rhythm. And if you can now assimilate what we've just talked about with rests, yeah, it's exactly the same as note values, as I said, except silent notes, silent beats, but you must always count them, because if you don't, you'll end up with an uneven amount of beats in the bar that you're playing. So I hope you found this useful. Again, if you've got any questions you would like me to answer, you can send me an email. You can email me at ben@benwalker.org, or you can leave a message in the comment section, or you can find me on Facebook under Ben Walker Music. Any way you want to contact me, I'm happy, more than happy to answer people's questions and help people to read music. You may not be a brilliant reader, but even if you're proficient enough just to learn a tune, say that you've not got an audio example of a tune, or if it's just too quick and you can't assimilate things at that speed, that's fine. So music is useful, it has its place, and it's a good skill to have, and it's certainly, I would advise learning to read music over tab all day long. Tab really doesn't give you very much information. Certainly doesn't give you any rhythm information, or how long or how short you need to hold a note. So if you're going to learn tab, you might as well just put a bit of extra effort in and learn to read music on the stave. Okay folks, well, thanks very much for your time. I hope you found this series of learning to read music videos useful. If you have, if you would like to give me a like or subscribe, that would be even better if you could subscribe. And even if you want to share this video, or maybe share it amongst other people who are delving into learning how to read music for the first time, they may well find it useful. So thanks very much, and have a wonderful Christmas, everybody, because it's very near Christmas. Have a wonderful Christmas, have a wonderful New Year, and may we all be COVID-free very, very shortly. Okay, take care folks, and I'll see you all in the new year. Bye for now.